Hi Sugar Snaps, welcome back to the studio and welcome back to this pine needle basket series. If you're new here, welcome in. I'm glad to have you. I'm Brittany. I teach basket weaving and fiber arts as well as textile arts online and in person. I'm currently exploring pine needle basketry and creating a series here on YouTube about pine needle basketry. So cleaning and dyeing pine needles in preparation for making baskets, creating baskets out of pine needles in coil shape and different stitches to use. And today I want to share a satisfying video where I'm going through the process of making a pine needle basket at a faster pace. So you're getting to see the highlights of the process at a pace where you can consume it in one sitting rather than over a course of multiple hours, which is how long it takes to make a pine needle basket. Pine needle baskets are coiled, and so they can take a long time because you are creating a bundle of pine needles and wrapping them with stitches and building the walls up one coil at a time, one stitch at a time. So it's a slow process. This is a slow craft. It's very relaxing and calming, but it does take time. So there is some commitment to making a pine needle basket. Today I'm going to be exploring a vase shape and we'll see what happens. I have an idea in my head, but we'll see what the pine needles form into as I work. I have my tray of tools here and my pine needles soaking in boiling water beside me, ready to go. I'll share a little bit about the materials and tools that I'm working with, and then we'll dive into the process. One of the reasons I wanted to share a satisfying video like this for pine needle basketry is that sometimes it's helpful to see the broad spectrum of what is involved in a project, so the entirety or all the different steps in a project before you dive in yourself, so you kind of know where you're headed. If you don't have a clear view of all of the things that are involved in a project, sometimes it's easy to get overwhelmed, to get bogged down in a single step when you don't know what the next step is. So being able to watch this video in its entirety, see the whole process of creating a pine needle basket, may be helpful to you to wrap your head around what the process is like. That's kind of my intention. If you have no intention of ever weaving a pine needle basket, that is totally fine. Sometimes it's fun to watch somebody else do something just because it's interesting. That's why I'm here. My tool tray includes imitation sinew, and I have several different colors here. This is what I'll be doing my stitching with, or the wraps with. A pair of craft scissors, a straw. This is just like a plastic straw. This could be my gauge, and I use this piece of the straw to create the pine needle bundle for this little basket, and you can see the video for this basket right up here. So I wanted to do something that's a little bit bigger than this, but I couldn't find a straw bigger than this, so I took some duct tape and a piece of cardstock and created my own by putting duct tape on both sides of the cardstock and then rolling it up to create this little gauge. I have a tapestry needle, and this one is fairly thin. I have some thicker ones here as well to play around with. I think I want the slightly thinner one. It still has an eye large enough to hold the sinew, but it's not so thick that it's going to cause awkward holes in the pine needles or create too much of a space as I pull it through the pine needles. And then a pair of pliers, just because pulling the needle through the pine needles over and over again does start to wear out my hands. So sometimes gripping the needle with the pliers can help that process. So I'm just have a little bit more leverage on the needle and the thread as I'm working. That's my tool tray. I have a towel in my lap to kind of catch the drips, and I'll be working in my lap here. You can obviously do this on a work table or a countertop or something like that. I just decided, because I'm going to be doing this for a while, it would be nice to sit down and get cozy. So I'm sitting in my nice armchair. I have a hot drink beside me and a little bit of chocolate, and I'm going to settle in here to doing this project. But before I do so, I want to go over the pine needles that I have. So I have a bin here, and this is boiling water that I poured over the pine needles. And I have a bin, and it has some greener pine needles. These are pine needles that I picked up when they were still fresh and dried in a dark place so that they maintain their green color. And then I also have these more rusty pine needles that I collected once they were dry by the sun, and so they're kind of variegated and more of a rusty color. They will end up drying this sort of solid tan. There is some variegation in this basket, the natural variegations in the pine needles, which is really fun. It won't be quite as dark or vibrant as these pine needles when they're wet. And now, without further ado, let's dive into starting to weave this basket. I'll just let you enjoy the process. I'm gonna turn on some music and let's see how this basket turns out.